Hey everyone, I'm going to go over a project that we're going to do starting this week, which is using Scratchboard. All right. Don't open it until you're ready to start drawing. These are pretty fragile. But before we start, I'm going to show a little bit about how to prepare an image to be ready for Scratchboard and talk a little bit about Photoshop and getting that prepped. There is access to Photoshop in the DODS 203, 205, and 204 labs. You should have access to those if you need. If not, let me know and we can find a workaround. All right, let's begin. Okay, share some screenage here and talk a little bit about. Okay, so these are some student works I'll show, and ultimately what we're looking for is a good image to use for Scratchboard. Now, Scratchboard is essentially scratching away the black material on top to reveal the white material beneath. So a good image to use really makes use of a fair amount of black. And you can see this image of a bee on top of a flower, great black background, the bee in and of itself, a lot of nice darker tones, and then of course the lighter tones being used as well. Also, this is going to be mostly entirely, actually I should say, it is entirely line or types of marks. You're not going to be able to do blending or shading or things like that. So things that are very linear or pattern based are going to be good to follow as well. Here's another image a student made, really great use of the black. So high contrast photo using like a spotlight to shoot an image of her friend. You can see all of this area is just simply open blackness, right? Same with this side over here. And then check out the direction of the marks. The marks are made to follow the contours of the face. And the more marks you have overlapping and crisscrossing, called cross-hatching, the lighter the tone can become. And the fewer marks separated in space give you darker or middle gray tones. So the goal is to create a highly detailed image with a wide range of value that really makes good use of the black. This is a bit of a photo composite, but still kind of interesting. Blaring sun with a silhouette of a biker going through. This is kind of what we're going to be working with for this project. I'm going to give you 3 scratchboards, and I want you to think about 2 images that can relate or connect in some sort of way, like a diptych. So this is a student that did a series of photographs and created these scratchboard images out of them. Obviously the female figure, but a great sense of light and shadow and depth as well. And here's a detail of these. Notice the cross hatching and the levels of gray that she was able to achieve with these. I think is really fantastic. Here's another great image I think that works well with the idea of the blackness, right? This like black lab on a black background, and so the shininess of the fur is what gets drawn, right? The lightness of that, and all the marks really mimicking the direction of the fur and giving the highlights and tones. Another great image of a figurative piece kind of emerging out of the darkness. Notice this whole side of the face is just simply a few marks that outline the glasses, and those get more revealed into the light side of the face. Again, the direction of the mark becomes very important here as well. So it's a little blurry, sorry about that. Again, separating tones by different directions of marks can be really effective. Patterning can be effective. Notice the patterning below here to reveal that lightness, and then all of the different textures on the skull slowly getting darker and darker as they emerge into the background. Then this is a series of some that are really great. I like this one a lot, the skeleton hand looking through the glass, the different levels of tone kind of acting there. This one, a backlit photograph of a dog shaking its fur. This one is really nice too, the skull emerging out of the blackness with this lily in the foreground, which I think worked really well. These two, you can tell what they are, but they're pretty minimal. So avoid singular kind of boring objects. Let's make it interesting, all right, folks? Here's another good example of a diptych. 2 hands, one holding a handful of pills, one holding a handful of tacks. Again, related, kind of connected, have a good relationship between the two. Ultimately, that's what we'll be looking for. Here's a nice image of a hand holding an apple and the way that it casts a shadow onto the background. So nice introduction to that. So again, sky's the limit for subject matter. Think about the darkness of the tone and how you can use high contrast to really effectively work into this piece. All right, let's talk about Photoshop really quickly here. So what I recommend is photographing some objects or some images or some friends or some sources that you can create, again, your own content. Think about becoming a content producer and using your own images. So what I'm going to do is, here's what I did. I shot this image on a black bag in front of a window, so it had directional lighting and there were shadows kind of facing me. So that ended up with a pretty good way of shooting to create an image. I'm in Photoshop here right now, by the way. This image I'm showing you because it is too blown out. Notice the white areas, there's not a lot of detail in here. We want to retain some of that information. So when you choose to photograph, if you're using your phone, you actually click on the lighter part of the subject so that everything balances to that object. This is a better image to use. Notice that it's a little bit darker overall, but my highlight areas have some levels of gray and detail. All right, so let's talk about how to get this set up and get it printed out. So here's what I'm going to do with this. The first thing is open up the image in Photoshop. I'm going to go to Image, Mode, Grayscale, and change it to simply black and white. All right, we don't need color for this. Next, I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels, and start to play around with the contrast a bit. So I'm going to bring up the highlights a little bit so I get some nice brightness in this, but still trying to retain some of the details. All right, so not too blown out. We don't want to go this far. That starts to lose it. So we want to get a little bit of those highlights while still retaining detail. And then I'm going to bring the middle down this way to get some darkness into this. Notice how the background is going completely black. I'm looking for some darkened shadows without losing too much information. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit farther, which is pretty good. And then I'm also going to bring the blacks down just a little tiny bit. Something like that actually looks pretty good. I've got a nice blackened background. I've got some details in the shadow areas. I definitely have some highlights. I might bring this just a little bit brighter now, actually. There we go. So I definitely have some white. I want to definitely have some white in these areas and hit OK. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think this is acceptable. So I'm going to crop this now to make sure that I have a full frame image. This is the crop tool on the side over here. So grab this. What I'm going to recommend is that you type in, if you go to, well, you might be able to choose 5x7. So if you go to the menu, you might be able to choose 5x7 if it's there. That is the size of our Scratchboards. You can see on the screen there. I'm covering up with my finger, 5x7. Okay, and then if it's going the wrong orientation, just click these two arrows. Okay, and then you can drag and frame this so you have some nice space around it, but it fills the frame a little bit better. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna hit return. Now it's cropped. And then finally, go to image size. So image size. And then you might have some crazy big number here, which is fine. Make sure this resample button is checked off. If it's like this, that will shrink your image. We want to retain the resolution, but scale it down a bit. So click this off, resample is off. Notice the 3 bars that connect all of these. And then simply just go to the width and hit 7. And it should convert, well, close enough to 5, right? 5x7. Hit OK. And now this is ready to print. So if I hit Command P, or if I go to File, Print, you can print this out, to any printer that you have. If you can't print it, let me know and I can print it for you when you're in class. When you're printing, make sure you go to down to where it says scaled print size, and it should be 100% because we want to retain that size to work from. So hit print, and you should be set to go. Okay, next video, I'm going to talk about how to prepare your image and then start the Scratchboard project. So that is all for now.